Be live now. I'll give people a second to just find it, and let me try to pull it up.
Like a 4-minute countdown, I think. So let's throw it on.
Be live now. I'll give people a second to just find it, and let me try to pull it up.
Like a 4-minute countdown, I think. So
oh, that's me on my side. Sorry. Okay, we're good. Yeah, so I'm here tonight with DJ Gigabyte. Good to be here with you. Someone who has been in the Pokemon hobby for a long time. Why don't I let you just introduce yourself a little bit, your experience in Pokemon, other TCGs, just for people who maybe aren't familiar with you yet, and you can also talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, and then we'll get into some nice discussions about a various number of things, and also take some questions as the night goes on.
Cool. Sorry, I'm just sharing all the links to this on Facebook.
Yeah, please Twitter, take a second if you need it.
We'll try and get some people in.
Nice.
So for people who don't know, my name's Dan. I go by DJ Gigabyte online. I've been collecting Pokemon since 2008. So long time collecting, have pretty decent collection amassed. Hopefully people agree with that. What else? Yeah, I do YouTube. I also write articles over on Ludkin's Media. My YouTube is not just focused on Pokemon, it's focused on all TCGs. So we do some openings, talking about rare cards, vintage cards, kind of obscure stuff. I think obscure stuff is my favorite thing in any of the TCGs, just something where it's like, oh wow, I just didn't know that existed until 10 minutes ago. It's always great. Hunting
down new things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's always cool when and I am definitely like I would say that's not my central. I like that sort of stuff and I'm interested. It's not my like central interest. And I'm definitely always like, not the first person to hear or discover, but I hear like once it goes out a few different layers from some guys on E4, I hear about it and I'm always like, oh, that's cool that someone found some new variation of I know Nate was on the channel recently. It was like, we found, this new variation of a Pikachu or this, but I've seen, a lot of your videos. I definitely highly recommend the channel. People should definitely check it out after this. And you talk a lot about other TCGs, which I love because I love, we both really like dead CCGs and all sorts of like interesting things and just discovering new stuff. And then you have a lot of these, videos on more obscure cards or obscure promos or variations that don't really exist anywhere else. So it's kind of a good place on YouTube to get that info. I know I learned about your channel the first time when I was trying to research and look up like the Art Academy cards, and you had the only video on Art Academy that I could find. And so that was helpful, that sort of thing. So definitely could be a good resource to look through to see if there's any, video on something more on the obscure side.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't want to go through the E4 forum and try to find the article. Well, cool, man. So, I guess we can start just briefly. I'm sure you heard the news from today about PWCC and eBay.
I did. Yeah.
I did a live stream a little bit earlier today. Just for like an hour or so, just talking a little bit about it, but maybe just if you want to share any thoughts on it or quick hitting opinions, just because it is definitely the news of today before we get into other things.
Yeah, it will definitely be interesting to see how everything plays out now, because obviously eBay in their like statement mentioned that it was people involved with PWCC doing the shill bidding. Like it always seemed kind of obvious that there were people who were not going to pay who were running up.
Just like an hour. Sure. Sorry, the video just came back up. I got it.
Okay. Yeah, it was always kind of obvious that a lot of these auctions had people that weren't going to pay who were running them up. And there was a lot of times people were winning these auctions and then not paying. But it will be interesting to see if evidence does come out that people who were involved with PWCC were some of the people doing this, because that's what eBay has kind of alleged.
Yeah.
Obviously, PWCC, I mean, they were never going to just admit it, but they've strongly denied it. So it will be interesting to see where all the chips fall. I just hope that everyone who has cards and stuff with them can get everything sorted out there. I hope that like no one's cards are kind of stuck in limbo. That would be pretty awful. I've noticed that a lot of feedback has started being left that's negative on their eBay account, just basically saying, "Oh, you now owe me a partial refund. This was definitely shill bidded." Like dozens and dozens of them, and it's, you know, a lot of people just jumping on the bandwagon trying to get a bit of free money back. But I guess I don't really have anything too strong on it right now until we get some more information or some more evidence.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary, you know, with that key piece being, or the two keys, you know, just the worrying about people who have their cards with them either in auction or in the vault and what's going to happen there. And then the other key, the other key part about like what is really happening here. Is it, you know, is it just show bidding, which happens everywhere, you know, or is it, you know, targeted sort of specific employees, you know, that they're, and even if it is employees, how high does it go? You know, were people aware of it? You know, it's all that sort of stuff. And we'll just sort of wait and see. And a lot of it just may never become public. So it may just end up, unfortunately, sort of existing in like the space of like, some people are going to have a more conspiratorial take, which is not necessarily wrong, you know, and then other people are going to have more of a like, you know, eBay is just out to get PWCC, you know, type take, which, you know, on that side, which could be true as well. So, you know, who knows? Somewhere in the middle.
There can't be news in the hobby without someone having a conspiracy around it, you know. So someone's got to have some conspiracy about something.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. So, I mean, if people want to start, you know, leaving questions about that for DJ Gigabyte, about anything in the hobby, we can start answering that. I guess just to start, I'd like to just get your opinion on like where the hobby is at currently, if you want to just share some words and maybe a little bit about like what you're doing right now in the hobby, as a collector, and if you, I don't actually know if you consider yourself like a, you know, flipper at all or investor, but you know, you know, anywhere there. Yeah. So as a collector, where are you at with things?
So as a collector, I'm still just picking up whatever I like at the moment. Really, I'm still getting a lot of the new English sets as they come out because I work in a board game store, so I have some like okay connections, and the owner helps me out a bit with like keeping me stuff and making sure I can get stuff, you know, without having to pay huge markups. Obviously, not able to get, you know, fill an inventory, but making sure I at least get one of every new product that comes out, which I'm really thankful for. Other than that, it is kind of just, I keep an eye on eBay. I see what's going on. If there's something I want at the price I want it, I'm picking it up. I'm not too worried about whether it's going to go up, whether it's going to go down. It's just, you know, not being an investor really helps with that. Not having to worry about, okay, is this going down in a couple of months? Last few things I picked up, I actually just got back from vacation like yesterday morning. So I picked up some cool stuff while I was away. I actually got some EV Heroes, which I hadn't been able to get beforehand. So I'm going to be opening that on the channel soon. Nice. Very happy about that. We picked up a ton of singles too. We went to some like flea market kind of things while we were out there. And my wife picked up a ton of like EX era, just random reverses and stuff to fill out some of her binders.
Nice.
I do love
it's always fun, binders. You know, making progress, like finding cards and making progress in those empty slots and binders is super satisfying.
Yeah, I think I'm currently I'm about a tip where I'm going to start focusing on, because I was trying to focus on trying to get my Sun and Moon stuff done, but Sun and Moon sets I'm just so unenthusiastic about finishing, because it's like, oh, I got all the reverses, I need 50 rainbows or something stupid, and I really don't like rainbow rares. You know, I've talked about it before, I've written about it. I'm not a fan of them, so I may go jump back to some stuff in the XY era, maybe the black and white era. I know there's some sets in there where I'm a little bit closer to finishing them, so I may try and pick those up or finish out my promo binders, stuff like that. That's kind of what I'm working on. As for the hobby as a whole, I think the hobby's in a good place. You know, obviously we had the crazy boom. There was a lot of people who were getting in for short-term gains and stuff. I think we are settling down a little bit now, it seems like, you know, and especially a lot of the people that got brought in who just want to make a quick buck. I think a lot of them have made their quick buck and they're out, and we're starting to get back to the point where, you know, people in the hobby are people who enjoy being in the hobby and they know what's going on. everyone's not getting bombarded with 500 questions of a day of, oh, what can I buy today that I can sell tomorrow for double? I think we're getting back to a nice place, and obviously the boom brought in a lot of people who are really happy to be in the hobby as well. And so we have like a lot of nice newer people who are in the hobby who are in this for the long term, and it's going to be really nice to chat to those people, help educate those people, see those people start picking up their first grails and stuff like that. I'm really excited about where the hobby's at. I do love the hobby. It could be in a terrible position. I'm never leaving it, but I like where the hobby's at. I think we're coming over a bit of a rough patch. The fact that Pokemon's now printing a lot more that they weren't able to is nice. I work in a board game store, like I said, and we're starting to see a lot of booster boxes come back in. Before it was like we could get one booster box every couple of months. Now we're getting, a few cases at a time, which is really nice. So we're getting a lot, and I think that's going to help a lot of people out in a lot of different ways too.
Yeah, I think there's a nice healthy balance that you hope for in Modern, where they don't overprint it so much that places are forced to sort of fire sell things, and it starts to, we see boxes either just sitting forever on eBay or, starting to creep below the $80 mark, which we've seen, occasionally over the years on a couple of less desirable sets. But you don't want it, with the increase in demand, you want enough printed that people are able to get it, hopefully somewhere in that like $80 to $100.
Yeah, I think that's a nice price for a box on any set. Yeah. Like if you want a box that's been printed in the last 18 months, I think 80 to 100 is a nice price. If they could print enough so that those boxes could be in that price range, it would always be really nice.
Yeah, and I think it allows more people to just open and enjoy those boxes with less of that financial pressure of, I need to pull something big, or I need to make my money back on this, or worrying about that sort of thing, or feeling like maybe I should keep it sealed because of that pain of opening it because it's worth so much, So
yeah, I don't like it. I think my least favorite sets are the ones where they have like one big hit.
Yeah,
like Vivid Voltage has a Rainbow Pika, Champion's Path just has the 2 Charizards. Because when it's something like that card not only is so much more valuable, it pushes the price on the rest of them down, because so much more is getting open to try and get this one big hit. Sure. You saw it in Magic quite a lot. There was a big flip in Magic when they it wasn't the last Zendikar set, the Zendikar before, when they first did the expeditions. So you could get like a full art foil Scalding Tarn, but the most expensive mythic in that set was like $20 most of the time. I don't think it went above that. Whereas in a set that didn't have these really, really hyped special printings, the most expensive mythic was like $40 to $60 quite a lot of the time. So I don't like when they have just one card that really stands up from the rest of the set, because even if it means that if you open a box and you get some rainbows or something, if you don't get that one rainbow, like it doesn't even have you don't even feel good about getting what should be a nice hit.
Yeah. I think that speaks for so many people who, so many of us collectors who, I know when I opened Modern, like I did enjoy Vivid Voltage just because I liked the Amazing Rares. Like there were cards that I enjoyed, but I definitely, the point that you made about the price and pushing those prices down, because, it was such a high demand set. People loved it so much, and there was such a high card value in it, which made more people probably open it. And even as the Amazing Rares went down, there still was a reason to maybe open the boxes, etc. I think it's an interesting point. But Champion's Path in particular is a great example of that, where, I think from a market standpoint, that set, probably got undervalued because it got so much negativity and hate, and in terms of those charters having value. But from a collector's perspective of like enjoying opening that product, it's not a particularly, for me, it's not a particularly enjoyable experience. I think some people, the minority, might like to, search for those 1 or 2 cards. For me, it's fun having like that like, there are 20, 25, 30 cards, it's not like Hidden Fates, for example, or right. I really like Shiny GX. I prefer the Japanese side, and I loved opening Shiny GX as a collector. And it's just fun because there's so many cards that I'm like excited to potentially see in there, including all those gold cards. There's just a lot of fun to be had, and all the baby, and I really, really like the baby shinies a lot. Some of them I like them more than the full art. So there's just a lot enjoyment in opening those packs.
Yeah, like Shining Fates and Hidden Fates, I think are very good sets, and I really like how they did those. But
Yeah.
I mean, with Champions Path now, especially with the price of seal and the price of cards, you could buy like a 3-pack pin blister, which is like the smallest product they have available.
Yeah.
Pull the third most expensive card in the set, and not have paid for the pin binder with the value of the cards.
Sure, it's like the Gardevoir, the Rainbow Gardevoirs.
Yeah,
like, but there's so many
like,
because it's such a small set, you know.
Yeah, I have a personal hate with Champions Path because we opened between me and my wife, we opened I think over 500 packs in the end. We got 1 shiny Charizard,
miserable,
and a big 0 rainbows.
Oh, that's so miserable, man.
Five rainbow Gardevoirs though, and I think at least 3 of every other rainbow. It was painful.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, in the future, like, people who didn't open it up may like to open a little bit of it up in the future to find that Charizard. For us who kind of like lived through it, it's unpleasant. You know, and Evolutions, I think, is a good example of a booster box that was printed just way too much, and so got, you know, irritating and annoying because it was in every product. You know, it's one of those things where, like, you know, and there were so many of them on the market always that you know, it's an example of where, you know, it's tricky to balance all of that. And then, you know, for Pokemon during that era, things like Roaring Skies, right? I mean, a lot of it had to do with playability, and the reprints had to do, you know, with trying to get Shaman out there in these types of things. So, and then, you know, with Tapu Lele, they corrected that by doing like that making it a promo, you know, to get it out there and all these sorts of things. But it's something the Pokemon Company constantly has to, you know, try to balance.
Yeah, I mean, because expanded as format, obviously we need to remember, even though we're collectors, Pokemon is primarily a game, and these are game pieces that people need to get. Because Pokemon has expanded as a proper format, I would be totally okay if the Pokemon Company just came out and said, okay, everything back to black and white is playable at our big regional tournaments. People need these cards. We are going to keep everything going back to black and white in print. I would be okay if they did that, as long as they came out and said, this is what we're doing. Like, I really don't like the fact that we can go so long, and now, like, within the past few months, they've reprinted Sun and Moon ETBs. It just feels like it's so random, and it feels like they don't know what they're doing. They're not giving us the information enough in advance. I obviously prefer a way more, like, open relationship and stuff, like with what Magic has, where they will openly state everything off the reserve list is open for a reprint, and where they're doing these Masters sets, reprints of these cards out there. I would like it if the Pokemon Company were a lot more open and just said, you know, this is what the plan is. These sets will never be reprinted. These are the sets that are, like, locked in as possible reprints. it would restore a lot of faith in the company as a whole amongst a lot of people.
I like that idea a lot. I you know, another option is sort of like a Yu-Gi-Oh situation where they have like a first edition printing that they don't reprint, and then they just reprint the non-first edition arts so that collectors too can get those. Because I do think that, you know, I do think that Pokemon is clearly this year has really become, there's so many more collectors interested now. And I would imagine more players will come from that too overall. But I think, you know, because so many more, you know, 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds are interested in collecting this and enjoying this again, I hope that Pokemon caters to that. I mean, one thing I talked about in a stream, like maybe a couple streams ago, is like my hope for sketch cards and things like that, like, you know, Marvel has and Star Wars has, and, you know, these cool one of one, you know, sketch card type things. I think would be so cool if they introduce that into Pokemon.
Do you think you would like those in booster packs?
You could do booster packs. You could also like, you know, and I don't know if Pokemon ever do this, right, but, you know, giving the right to Topps, and Topps could do, you know, a non-TC, like a non-playable, you know, version of some Pokemon cards that it's really just for collecting, could be an option. If the Pokemon Company would ever do something like that, that would be a good place to put that potentially.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't hate that if it was basically Topps doing like what Topps have done before with Pokemon, where it's a collectible set of Pokemon that isn't the TCG. I've spoken a lot about this with people, and I don't like the idea of putting stuff that rare into the TCG. Yeah. Especially into booster packs. I guess I'd be okay if it was something like a lottery system, like what they do in Japan with like rare arts and stuff like that. I just wouldn't. I think also anyone, almost everyone in the collecting hobby who doesn't really experience, working in a store or working at these events, seriously always underestimates how much of the sealed product is just opened by small children and people who are not in the collecting hobby. Like, if they put these one-of-one cards into booster packs and stuff in regular sets, we'd probably just never see them. They'd be in some kid's back pocket somewhere.
I think so. Something that like Upper Deck does with Marvel is they actually have one per booster box. So every single booster box gets one.
Okay.
And so again, it might be an expense thing. Like, part of the reason, and part of it is I think part of what's so cool about it is that it helps get a lot of artists involved and young artists and helps bring them up. And so being like featured in like as a one-of-one artist that worked with the Pokemon company can be really good for helping their career. And it's part of what happens with these Marvel artists, because the Marvel artists who are doing these now, Stan Lee did some of these sketch cards like early on, but like the sketch cards today are done by mostly artists who are kind of like up and coming or, dabble in some of this stuff. And, I think that's really cool in terms of like the expense. I mean, I think part of the reason why Marvel did that is because they were not nearly as popular as Pokemon. So part of it was adding that coolness that you're paying for, whereas Pokemon doesn't need any help right now selling most product. But I would love it as a collector. It would add such, excitement, and maybe not even in a pack, but you could have it as like a box topper type of thing or something. There are lots of maybe options for that, but.
Well, Pokemon also has like a crazy hold over their art and their artists in the way that like no other game does. Sure. I don't know, have you ever been to a Magic Fest or a Magic Grand Prix?
No.
So out there, you'll see a lot of artists. Like, they have their artists there signing cards, or they can do sketches on cards, or they can alter cards like live on site. Pokemon has a thing where if an artist goes to a convention and like they're signing Pokemon cards, they're not even allowed to like draw the face of a Pokemon on that card.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it was one of the events that I think one of Jimmy Ballard's regionals a while back, he ran its kind of like convention and got some Pokemon artists there. And there was people talking about all of the like crazy restrictions they have on their artists. Of their artists basically can't do anything related to Pokemon outside of the company. So because of that, I don't know how much the like promoting of their own art they would get out of doing sketch cards and stuff, because they then can't take that into another monetization stream.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see how these things go over time. I think that if they were to do something like sports is doing with these like significantly valuable one-of-ones that people were chasing for, I would want that to be separate. That needs to be like an adult separate product that doesn't affect the prices or in certain like a limited edition type version of the box that wouldn't affect the majority of people who just want to do the fun playable stuff. Because I mean, we see the prices on like these sports card boxes. I mean, even some cheap like sheet boxes were crazy expensive, let alone like things like National Treasures, which is like $8,000 a box or something, like fresh off the line.
It's like, I mean, Magic is trying to like shorten that distance between TCGs and collectible cards, where they're doing things like, the collector boosters and stuff, which have are more expensive packs with a lot of rarities in it. But I think basically anything that is a game where they have to prioritize, obviously the first thing is these need to be playable. We need to, I don't think Magic will ever do a thing where it's like, this is a variant art that you can't play in a tournament. So they need to first of all think, is this going to be worth it for the people? We have to put the players first, basically. Like, any TCG can do some stuff for collectors, but they basically always have to put the players first, because that's like the backbone of actually keeping these things going. Yeah.
How do you feel about the newest sets and the move towards like alternative arts and these types of things? Are you enjoying it?
For Pokemon? Yeah, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I've said
a big improvement from the rainbow rares.
Oh, kill the rainbows. Like, literally, get some of those guys. If you get that alternate art Rayquaza VMAX and put it next to a rainbow rare and go, oh, you are supposed to be equally hyped about these two cards when you open them. It's like, what is going on? Or even the step lower, get one of those super nice alternate art Evolution Vs and then put it next to a 5-band full art and go, these are supposed to be equally as exciting. But
Yeah.
like one of my main hatreds of the rainbow rares is like the first one you see looks incredible. And then the next one you see, you're like, oh, it's kind of the same, but looks kind of cool. And then you 10 down the line and go, oh, this is the same thing. Like, and even with full arts, I've said full art trainers and full art supporters are some of the best art we've had in Pokemon in a long time. I have no issue with full art supporters. But full art Pokemon, it's always just, it's the Pokemon, it's on kind of a generic background. It's just some colorful background. Mm-hmm. Whereas all of the alternate arts, like every one is unique. They all have like so many different unique art styles. All of them look so different to each other. Everyone seeing it, it's like, oh wow, this is amazing. And you can look at them for a long time. Like there is stuff in the backgrounds of some of them. You can look at it for like on your like 100th time seeing it and be like, oh, I didn't even notice like this Pokemon is here in the background, or I didn't notice this little detail. I think they're insane. I think they just need to cut rainbows completely. Keep the full art supporters, give us these alt art Pokemon, maybe a generic 5-band full art if that Pokemon doesn't get an alternate art. I think they're just, the fact that they're at the same rarity level is just so horrible too. Because it's like when with Eevee Heroes, when it was like, oh, you can either pull this alt art Umbreon VMAX or you can pull Rainbow what's his name. And it's like, these are at the same rarity level. It's like, come on, please don't do this to us. So your opponent's like, oh, I got a cool rainbow card, but it's not, oh, I got a cool rainbow card. It's like, oh, this could have been Umbreon VMAX.
Yeah, I like the rainbow rares and I like the alternative arts, but I think that like definitely like purely from just what is like better art or what's more or let's say this way, what's more imaginative and interesting in trying to push the boundaries, into something a little bit new. Clearly the alternative arts, the creativity, the colors, everything, right? I think with the rainbow rares, there's something I like about collecting a lot of them and having them together. That's just satisfying to me as a collector, even though it's not about like appreciating the art necessarily. I think it's like the completionist in me. And there's something about having like them all look the same that makes me like feel good about completing them. And I like putting them all up. But I agree with your take that like, it's not, they're all like the exact same. I mean, they're all
I think I'd hate them less if it was actually unique art, but it's not. It's just the full art. It's the same art as the full arts, just with a rainbow design on it. And since I have mentioned a few times about treating this as a game, judges hate rainbow rares so much. Because if you're just playing with full arts and stuff, they all look different enough that if you're a judge, you can walk over and look at the board state, and you kind of know what all cards do if they're relatively played, and you can see the board saying, oh, this is what's happening on the board. Now, what's my question? But I've had judges say they have to go over and they have to pick up and like read 4 or 5 different rainbow rares to see which one it is before they can even then start assessing the situation. So I know most judges who I've spoken to really hate rainbow rares too because of that.
That makes sense. And I really like your take. I really agree with your take on that it be cool, even if they kept the rainbow rare color like on all of them and the style, they could have done something different with the design, the actual drawing. Yeah.
And so that it wasn't just the full art again, but looking like with a rainbow.
I mean, you could have these alternative art, kind of really interesting arts, but just with then rainbow rare. And like, I think that would be definitely, I would prefer that.
I think it's especially horrendous on the rainbow supporters that they've started doing from Sword and Shield. At this point, I think I'm just reading off an article I wrote a little while back, but full art supporters are generally done with a lot of interesting stuff going on in the background, and they've always had good art, but then the rainbow rare just completely blanks all of that out. We got any mods in chat?
Oh my god. Disgusting.
Is it possible to kill off their username too? I don't know if it is. Hopefully it just goes off the screen in a moment.
Oop, I deleted the wrong one. Oh my god, are you serious? Yeah, you say, but do the best you can. Oh, we've got someone who is determined to ruin the chat.
Yeah.
Can you please stop, whoever you are? Like, this is a Pokemon channel. Oh my god, I've never had this happen. Like, we're just trying to have a good time here, and you're ruining it for us. Can you please stop? Nope, refuses to stop. All right. I mean, we're gonna have like they're gonna. What do you
continue? I think I don't know if.
What do people do? This has never happened to me before.
I don't know. I've never done lives on YouTube before, so I'm not exactly sure. Like I can block the person, but that blocks it from me. I don't know what options the
all right, have. Yeah, Mason and all you guys, I guess just keep canceling them. I mean, I don't really know what to do. I mean, we could restart the stream.
I think it's probably.
It says it seems to be a bot. I've heard about this happening on Twitch. People are discussing. I'm so sorry, everyone in the chat. Let's see this right now. So we're trying to block him, but it keeps like changing the name. Okay.
Yeah. I think we probably just have to continue and hope that the mods are going to get to it and we can.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff just really upsets me because it's like just very important for me to keep this like where people don't have to see stuff like that. All right. Where were we?
Yeah. I was in the middle of a rant about something. Probably. Should we just get some people to throw some questions in the chat and I can just go from there for a bit?
Yeah, let's take some questions. I'm just looking here.
I think when we first started, I saw someone ask if I just collected sets or if I collect trophies too. And I have some here. I have some trophies here. I can
show go for it.
I do collect some trophies too. I have a couple.
Pretty good.
Yeah, we have got a nice little set of these.
Mm.
Kind of hard holding up to the webcam. There you go. There's a 1, 2, 3, and 4 English trophies, original art. So there we go. There's some trophies people can see.
Very cool. So tell me a little bit. I'm intrigued before we get to some questions. Tell me a little bit about your experience in kind of like chasing these trophies. And I know you're good friends with David Person, and
yeah,
obviously his hunt to try to acquire them all. What has that experience been like for you over at Worlds and tracking these things down? I'm also interested, if you're willing to share kind of giving some, maybe I don't know if you want to create competition for yourself or for others, but advice, or do you feel like it's still possible to do that? Do you think people are going to be doing that at this year's Worlds if it happens?
We'll try. I think David Person has, I would say period, David Person has the edge on people coming. Because I know there are other people in the hobby now who have the money that David has, but David has been at Worlds every year since about 2007.
Yeah.
He's been meeting players. He's built up these relationships with players, with judges, with staff members. Like, his name's quite well known. Even the last Worlds we had in 2019, there were a lot of people going around with a lot of money trying to buy the trophies, and some people got 1 or 2. David got 3 out of the 4 on the weekend, and then got his last one a bit after with some contacts. But he's putting the work in. He's been putting the work in for a while, getting to meet these people. He already has the connections. Once you find out who has the trophy cards, he's already 10 steps ahead, just based on the fact of that based on the fact he's been doing this so long, he knows the people. And I do help him out, but we can get into contact generally, either with players or with people who know the players. And he is always trying to keep up with the market. I know there have been times where even in recent years, he's underpaid on cards because we just didn't realize what other people were offering.
Mm.
I will say, if you're wanting to buy a card at Worlds, you have to, like, if you want to buy it on Worlds weekend, you have to be at Worlds. Like, no, the deals for trophy cards are not happening on Facebook. Worlds weekend. You kind of have to be there, and you have to be putting the time in. You can't just show up. There was a couple of years back, there was people talking about going to buy trophies, but they were like wandering on Sunday and going like, okay, where are the trophies? How do I buy them? It's like, that isn't how it works. I remember it was one year someone didn't even get a ticket to the event. They was like, oh, I'll just see the people coming out of the building. And it's like, no, you won't do that. So that's not going to happen.
So what would you suggest for people interested getting into that market? Like where should they start? Like, let's take a person, because it's difficult, right? Let's take a person who really is like new to this and doesn't have connections. How would they start? Is it possible?
So if you want to do it at Worlds, if you want to get one of these new trophy cards, obviously make sure you're at the event all weekend. Make sure you have cash on you for whatever you're willing to pay for these cards. Don't go to the person like, oh, I'll PayPal you half, or can we do a payment plan? If those cards are selling that weekend, they are selling to people who have the amount of money in cash. That's just the way it is. Obviously you can say, come back to the hotel. Because before, when the value of them was 4,000, you could carry 4,000 in cash. No one's going to be carrying 100 grand in cash on in their backpack or whatever. But make sure you have the cash there. Make sure you're willing to put the time in. If you're going to Worlds and you're like, oh, this is my vacation and maybe I'll get a trophy card, you're not going to get a trophy card. If you're going to Worlds saying, I'm going to get a trophy card, that is my goal, then you can probably manage it. But you have to be willing to say, okay, this weekend, I'm going to work on getting that trophy card. I'm going to talk to the people. I'm going to see who's all of the standings. We're going to see what's going on. It's not going to be, I'm going to go to the beach for 2 days and then we'll stop in and see what's happening. You have to really put the work in, but it definitely can be done. There are 6 copies of each card. Even if David has the advantage, he's only going for 1 of each. So it definitely can be done. I would say, obviously, just trying to think of the best way to word this. And the best thing to do is, if you go and you don't get a trophy card, don't lose hope and say it's impossible, I'm not trying this again.
Yeah.
Once the weekend is over, if you didn't get your card, that is the best. That is then when you can start looking online, because there are some people who won't sell on the weekend, but will take some time to think about it. So at that point, if you don't get it on the weekend of Worlds, you go, then you can go online, you can let people know that you're looking to buy. But just as with a lot of stuff in this hobby, you just really have to have patience in a lot of it. You have to be willing to put the work in. You have to have patience. It's not something that's just going to come to you really quick. I know David, one of the last ones he was missing was the 2007 number 2 trainer. And he didn't get that until about 2015.
Okay.
And when I first met him in 2010 and then in 2011, he was missing 2 of the 3 trophies from 2004 as well. And, but he hadn't given up. He was he was letting people know. He knew the winners. He knew who had the cards. He was just always saying to them, look, this is the price I'm offering. You know where I am if you want to come and find me. Not putting the high pressure on them of, you have to sell this to me now. I need this. It was, here is what I'll pay you. Here is where you can find me. If you ever make the decision to sell, come and see me. Because people with the trophy cards, they don't want the hard buy. They don't want I'm willing to pay you this now. Come on, this is cash now. It's just, contact me. Here's my number. Sorry about that. So,
yeah,
biggest thing is patience.
Important. So make connections, meet these people,
yeah.
Develop relationships to be this sort of trustworthy person, which is difficult when you're starting from scratch, but goes to your next point of the patience, that make fair offers, give your information, and then kind of don't hound them and let them sort of decide or hopefully get back to you later.
Yeah, and if you don't get it at Worlds that weekend, you can, there would be a Worlds the year after, hopefully. Whenever Worlds comes back, it will hopefully be every year. There's nothing wrong with just taking the time, waiting, and trying again. When you're talking about cards at this level and you're talking about the hobby as a whole, 12 months isn't that long of a time to, if you said, oh, I'm not going to chase a card unless I get it within the next 12 months, there'd be so much you'd miss out on. Because, you could say now, oh, I want an illustrator, but only if I get it within the next 12 months. And it's entirely possible there's going to be no illustrators ever sold for like 5 years or something. But the people who want it now and are willing to wait the 5 years, those are the people who are going to get it.
What cards are, if you're willing to share, and if you're not, that's perfectly fine, but what are you after? Any more trophies or some of these kind of elusive cards? Do you have some grail cards you're hoping to get eventually?
So I'm not after any more trophies. I think they've pretty much gone out of my price point now, unless unless I much better paying job or start bringing a lot more money. Trophies are kind of off the table for me now.
Sure.
The remaining Art Academy cards that I don't have, I think are still kind of in a range where I could potentially pick them up if they come up. But I'm only missing the Art Academy cards that, the winners did. Well, I'm missing 3 other 3 that the winners never sold. They only had those extra copies come out. And then I'm missing the Mew, which the winner was selling, but has been selling like 1 every few months. So those have always gone quite high. So at some point in the future, I'd like to get those. And I'm still picking up PSA 10 Vaporeon cards. And I have most of the like very, very expensive ones. There's still a couple which are going to be in the 4-figure range, which, it's not easy for me to do, but it's doable. Basically, for me at the moment, if a card is in the 4-figure range and I really want it, I can make it happen. 5 figures and up is where I'm just out at the moment in the hobby. So that's where I bought my trophy cards when they were at 4 figures, and now they're all at high 5, low 6 figures. So that's why I'm definitely out of trophy cards for at least a long time.
Let's see what we got. Yeah, for people who are interested in like more of our thoughts on like the Pwcc shield bidding, we talked a little bit about it in the beginning, and I did a video on it earlier today. If you guys want to go check that out later on.
There's a question here of with the trophies, how do you figure out the rough price to value them at, and do winners ever sell their physical trophies? With the trophy card, it's just what you're willing to pay, what the other people who want to buy them are willing to pay, and the best way is just, if you're not sure, an auction goes up, you kind of have to auction prices. Go, okay, that was the last one sold. How long ago was it? The same with other rare cards. A lot of that stuff you can't just have a consistent market value for because they're so rare and they don't sell as often. In terms of selling physical trophies, I've definitely seen physical trophies sell before. They go for way, way less than the cards. I'm not sure I've ever seen any of the Pwccs sell. I think Zach Gem Mint maybe has one. I think he may post about that, but I've seen a few of the glass ones from previous years sell. They don't go for a great deal. They're nowhere near the value of the cards.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting market. And also just the general, like, I'm starting to see more influencers and people just showing off and buying other types of items, even outside the trophy items, just items from like the Tropical Mega Battle, like the shirts, the hats, the medals, that type of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff when it comes to Pokemon. A lot of it doesn't get out as much anymore because from recent tournaments, because of that market. Like, you see the thing on the wall behind me is actually the main banner from Worlds 2012. It's like covering a full wall. It's a really nice cloth banner. So what they used to do is at Worlds, if anyone's been, they have dozens of these banners that are custom made. They're branded with the event logo and stuff. It used to be that all of these banners, after they were taken down, because Pokemon don't need them anymore, they would generally be given out to judges at the judge or the staff dinner after the event. They'd have raffles, and most judges would just win these in the raffles, and that's how a lot of them got sold. I bought mine from someone who won a raffle. There's a lot of other collectors have these big banners, but as of a few years ago, there were so many collectors and stuff going to Worlds that the judges would come back from the staff dinner, they'd all get off the bus at the lobby of the hotel, and they'd all be sold before anyone had gone up to their rooms. They were all selling it was basically the lobby of the hotel was becoming just a market stall for all these banners and stuff, and Pokemon didn't like that. So now all of the banners and all of the merchandise that is made by Pokemon that isn't for the general release goes back to Pokemon now. No one gets it. So any of this stuff from recent years, if any of it gets out, if anyone manages to somehow get a banner or anything like that, that's going to be like hype item from the last few years because just no one really has them.
Interesting.
There was actually Worlds 2010. One of my friends got a giant Suicune banner just simply by walking past them as they were taking it down.
That's funny.
These are all the things that they didn't care. It was like, yeah, well, what are we going to do with it? It says Worlds 2010 on it. We don't want to just give it to this person walking past. But Now it's like, oh, these things are like selling for hundreds of dollars on the secondary market. We don't want our like branded stuff like that selling on the secondary market when it wasn't really supposed to be given to anyone.
So there are a couple of comments here, like trophy cards seem extremely overrated, little to no personal connection, typically bland artwork, seems like people want them solely because of the scarcity. What do you make of, from that market perspective? And maybe you can talk personally as a personal collector, like, what do you make of, like, obviously everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I think those are fine, reasonable opinions to have. But what do you think does attract certain people to trophy cards? Is it just, do you think, all about the scarcity? Are there other elements also?
Well, the scarcity is a lot of it, but there's a story behind the scarcity, Like for 3 out of my 4 trophies, I can tell you who won them. Because it's not like, if they gave out if there was a card where they only had 6 copies and it was just somehow they were given out, like if it was just one of those things where it was like, oh, there's 6 copies of this in all booster packs ever, and they were just, some people pulled them, I don't think they'd go for the same amount that these trophy cards go for, because the trophies have a story of, oh, like I can go to someone who is outside of the hobby, has never heard of Pokemon, they say, oh, show me a cool card, and I'm going, okay, you got this for winning the World Championships. Like, I can't go, oh, well, this one, like, compare it. I'm not comparing the price, but this is a Stadium Challenge Deoxys. This is a #1 trainer. Now, I know this doesn't have unique artwork or whatever, but if we just look at the story behind them, a person outside the hobby, I show the Stadium Challenge Deoxys, it's like, oh, well, it's stamped for entry into this event, and there was only one event, and you had to go to Austria and blah, blah, blah. That one, you win the World Championships, you get this card. People know what that means. It's a cool story. And even the trophies, that aren't worlds or aren't tournaments, stuff like the Illustrator, it's a cool story. You had to enter an art contest in a magazine, that takes more explaining than I just won the World Championships, but it's a cool story. So I think it's scarcity mixed with the cool story, and why they're scarce, I think, is more of a reasoning behind the fact that they're scarce at all. And then I think I have to disagree on a lot of them having bland artwork. I think a lot of the trophy cards have incredible artwork, but it's totally you don't like the artwork on a trophy card, then there are millions of Pokemon cards that have incredible artwork. Some of them will appeal to you. Just don't buy the trophy cards you don't like the art on. If you're looking through trophy cards, I'm sure you'll find some that have artwork that you like, and just pick those ones up. If you're doing this for a collection rather than for investing, just go for what personally appeals to you. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. If you think, oh, no, the #1 trainers are really bland, but I love Mysterious Pearl or whatever, then don't get the #1 trainer, get a Mysterious Pearl. If it's your collection, stick to what you like.
Yeah, I mean, I say if you don't like the trophy cards, all the better, because they're very expensive.
Yeah.
As a collector, it's like, if you like some less expensive cards that were more heavily printed, it's great. It can work out for your wallet too. I think that, for me, the rarity, the chase, the history, the excitement, and the story, just as you said, are all, key elements to me. Although, I do think that it depends on the price point. Like a number of these items are way more expensive than I'm willing to pay, right. And, to me, they're not worth that much to me. But from an investing or market, standpoint, it's interesting with these. There are very few, and the prices can easily be controlled by a few individuals who own them. Yeah. And some of these cards are, they're owned by 3 or 4 people, really, particularly in high grade. And so it's if you want one, they can sort of dictate, the market and the price. And that's part of why you can see, really huge prices on some of these and really huge exponential growth, even if there isn't, humongous sort of deep demand for some of these trophy cards or for some of these items.
I think as well, worth mentioning is you don't have to own a card to appreciate the card. Like I can openly say, I am never going to own an Illustrator. I cannot afford an Illustrator unless something absurd happens in my life. I am never going to be able to afford an Illustrator. But it's an insane card. The story is very cool. The artwork is really cool. I love the artwork on it. It's obviously been known as like the holy grail of the hobby. But even other stuff, the Kangaskhan, the parent-child Kangaskhan, that's way out of my price range. It's not as as famous as the illustrator, but I can appreciate the hell out of that card despite the fact that I don't own it. You don't have to separate this into thing, oh, things I'm going to buy and things I don't like. You know, you can like cards and just say, for whatever reason, this isn't a card I'm going to own. I just really like it.
Yeah, I also think we can do maybe a better job in some areas of the hobby, and like separating, like, you can really like something too that isn't valuable because there are tons of it out there. There's a ton of supply. So it's like, if someone says something isn't investable or isn't that valuable, it's, because of a lot of supply, it doesn't mean that you out there, whoever really likes it, shouldn't like it and enjoy it and collect it. And frankly, all the better from a collector perspective, because then it's readily available. So I think, definitely. Everything at the end of the day, right, is that supply and demand piece. Now, in terms of people liking these things because of scarcity, I also think that sometimes I hear that, and I don't think this person's saying it, but I think sometimes people kind of shame, scarcity and chase. And I think that that's also, it's kind of a little strange. It's like telling people why they should like something or enjoy something. It gets into a little bit of like, well, you should like it for whatever reason. And part of it can be knowing that it was really hard to attain, and knowing that goal of finding or getting that item or having that item even for a short time that only a few other people can have, and I get how that can feel maybe icky to some people, because it's like you like it because other people don't have it and that sort of thing. And I get where that can go a little bit, but this isn't food and water. Like it's okay that some of us, that some people have these and other people don't. And like, it's not like I think it's perfectly harmless that there's that excitement of having things that other people don't have, and that fun when it's items that are not of like extreme, from moral perspective or ethical perspective, of like extreme fundamental importance to like any of our lives, So I don't know. That's my take on all of that. But I think for people who, I think that there can be some truth in that. You have to be careful about how these trophy cards built their value, and you shouldn't be buying into these things if you don't like the prices and you think they're overvalued. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think even worth saying as well is, even if you do like the price, I'm willing to pay that, make sure you can afford it. Like I see a lot. I'm quite active in a lot of Facebook groups of Pokemon, and it's not at the trophy card level, but it's at lower levels. And you see so many people having to do like, I'm selling all this stuff really quick because I need to pay my bills. I spent too much on Pokemon this month. Like really be careful with, don't like remortgage your house to try and get a trophy card or something.
Yeah. And Elon Musk here says, that he doesn't care for them because he didn't pull them as a kid. So he doesn't have that attachment as a kid. And for me, I really like cards that I had an attachment as a kid, but there are plenty of other cards that I didn't know about or didn't have an attachment as a kid, many of which are set cards that I also really enjoy. So for me, it's not mutually exclusive. It's like I like a lot of different things in this hobby. And like, talk about all these like dead CCGs and all these things. Like, a lot of those things that I'm like super into, I love the IPs, but I didn't know anything about the card games. And now I'm just discovering the card games and loving it, so. I
think what is really cool on a lot of dead CCGs is a lot of the time there is that huge chase. Like, I know we talked about in Pokemon where you are going to have to wait sometimes for a card, but a lot of the time the card is kind of always going to be available. Like, if you have $1 million and you want an illustrator, you might have to wait, but we know where they are. You're going to have to get them. In dead CCGs, it's like, it could be like, okay, this card is a $10 card, but it's going to I'm going to have to find someone who has it. Like, I'm going to have to spend, I don't know who has them. I don't know where they are. I don't even know how it was given out. Like, with Pokemon now, we're getting pretty good at pretty much everything is documented. Like, even the older Japanese stuff, it's getting a lot better. We know how this stuff came out. We know where it went. Dead CCGs don't have that. Dead CCGs are a crapshoot for just if you want a chase on your hands, if you want to have to like really be tearing your hair out trying to find something, go into dead CCGs. It's hilarious. It's really cheap as well because no one else wants it. There's like 2 of you in the world who even want it. but you have to find the guy that has it. You have to find the guy that opened it in 1997 and put it under his bed.
And then sometimes in these things you find out there are like, you know, there is like an occasional prize card, or there was an occasional, you know, like Japanese, like Chinese promo or some kind of one-off odd thing, and you're like, all right, well, gonna put like an eBay alert for that and try to find that whenever that comes up in the next 10 years.
I was doing like research into the Nightmare Before Christmas card game for a video, and it was like, oh, there was 2 sets and the most expensive card from any set is like $10. And it was like, oh, did you also know there was a set of promos they ran for tournaments and now no one is selling them anywhere, and like none have been sold in years and they're hundreds of dollars per card? And it's like, no, I didn't, but that's kind of funny.
So here's a comment by Vidu GMS saying there seems to be a large degree of elitism when it comes to trophy collectors and the way they talk down on set collectors in a condescending manner. I think that's probably true in some respects, although I think that some of it can get lost when it gets confused with like investment financial talk with like collector talk. I think most people who are really into maybe trophy cards or rarity or even like PSA 10 low pop type cards, they might argue that those cards are sort of investable and are, you know, have a decent chance of really retaining value and potentially, you know, going up decently in value. And there might be a little bit of feeling of like some of these mass produced cards that people might be grading, you know, don't have value and may not really go up financially.
Yeah.
And so I think some of that condescension may not really be like condescension for preference, but more of like an argument around like what is investable or what's going to be very valuable. Although I do think also, to be completely fair to you, I'm sure there are a number of people some people who are like, you peasant, you're interested in like collecting like master sets of modern cards. And, you know, I mean, both DJ Gigabyte and I collect modern sets, and, you know, DJ Gigabyte completes every single binder. I complete binders of dead CCGs that are worth $6, like where I'm spending a lot more on the binder and the sleeves than the value of the cards inside. So it's not about like you should always like collecting is not just about the money. It can also be about the money and the fun of owning expensive things, but it can also just be about completing something, appreciating it, you know, any sort of gatekeeping around like what is the acceptable way, what's not the acceptable way, or condescension on someone else. I think it is, you know, unfortunate around that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that and your experiences around that?
Well, first I'll just correct. My goal is to finish every binder for every set. I don't have it done. It's an ongoing project.
It's an ongoing goal.
Yeah, I think what you said about like collecting versus investing, I think a lot of the time when people think that there is some elitism or some talking down to, it's people having 2 different conversations. It's one person having a conversation about collecting and one having a conversation about investing, and just something is getting lost in translation in the middle.
Yeah.
So like when people are talking down, saying like, why are people grading all these like PSA 8 cards from the last 2 sets? They're not saying, oh, the cards are rubbish, you shouldn't be collecting those. It's like, well, those people are talking from an investment standpoint of these cards are not worth the increase in price between raw and your PSA 8 isn't worth the price you just paid to have it graded. But you know, there are people grading just because they want those cards graded. So I do think there is definitely some elitism somewhere. There are definitely people who are guilty of it, but overall, generally, the community is pretty open to say, like, you know what, you collect what you want. So I think if you're at a point where you're seeing too much elitism, just try and ignore those certain people, because those people are a huge minority in the hobby, the people who are elitist about what they collect.
Yeah. And I think even like for me, like I haven't done a good enough job of making that clear at times. And when I get heated, I'm getting heated at people telling others to invest in things that I feel like they're telling them that for their own benefit, because they're selling that product directly, whether it's modern or, you know, graded cards or whatever.
Yeah.
That's why I'm heated. I'm not heated because like people like or are willing to pay, you know, it's like you should I mean, it's awesome that people are like a card enough and a card means enough to them and they like the art enough that they're willing to pay money to get it graded, even though they know, if they do know, and that's one of those things that like they're probably not gonna be able to resell that, over the $20 or so they're putting into grading. So yeah, but it's a good conversation, and I think it is one that can get lost. And I also think that there's that sort of like any sort of investment or financial talk, we don't like that, that type of argument in people. And
I just want to give a quick answer to, who's it, SGR 7th. So the fossil set that I was collecting, which is a really difficult one, is an Australian set rather than a UK set. It's the one with the 1992,000 copyright date on it. I did finish that set. The only thing I know about is my Raichu is the one from the Thunderstorm gift box, not from the Australian packs. There is a very, very slight difference in card stock. And the other three cards that appear in both, I have both versions of. So I don't have the rarer Raichu, but because the difference is literally a tiny variation in card stock, I'm okay for now. But I did finish the set. I do have videos of it up on my channel. I managed to get the last two that I was missing. And I assume by the TV reporter, you mean the reverse TV reporter from EX Dragon. There are definitely a lot of cards out there that are as rare as it. That one, I mean, maybe not a reverse holo from a set. It's probably the rarest reverse holo from any set. But it's again, that's another one that's super popular because of the story behind it. But a lot of people are like, well, how did they just miss a card from a set? So that's what that is. But yes, I did finish the set, and the TV report is the rarest reverse holo, but there are definitely other cards as rare as it, like a lot of promos and stuff.
Yeah. So I saw a question earlier just asking, like, what are your general thoughts on celebrations and on the leaks, if you have any. I've sort of shared my thoughts before on the channel, but interested to hear sort of your take on the whole thing.
So I'm actually currently in the middle of writing an article for Ludkins about the leaks and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So I'm not going too much into it because I have a lot of detail, a lot to say about how I feel about leaks and stuff happening. But I'll say for the set in general, I'm pretty hyped for the set. Set looks cool. I guess a lot of it is going to be, how rare are the subset of the reprint cards?
Yeah.
Is it just going to be one of those ones where you're opening tons and tons of packs to say like, oh, I didn't even get one, never mind trying to get the one out the 25 I'm after. So I guess a lot of my opinion on the set when it's released is going to hinge, I think, on just how rare those are and whether it makes the set annoying to open. But it's definitely a cool set. I think they've definitely knocked it out the park with what they're actually doing for the set. I think it's a very, very nice one.
So Steve Jackson has a question about the Pikachu trophies. Let's see. In general, are the half art World's Pikachu trophies worth more than the modern full art ones? Or are all the World's trophy cards worth similar prices these days?
So it's a really hard thing to say in terms, because most of the sales we've seen, half arts were above, especially recently. I say recently, I mean when Worlds was happening, but a lot of that was because the modern full arts were still being given out.
Yeah.
If we don't know how long those are going to still be given out for. I mean, 2022, or if we have a Worlds, it might be new art, but it could just be more with the same art. So I think that while they're still appreciated and stuff as much, people were, at least for a while, at least a bit hesitant on the price, because it was like, okay, these are rare, but there are 6 more of each one being given out every year. At least with the half art ones, we know how many there were, and we know, there were only 3 given out for most of the years that they gave those out. So there are less in total of the half arts than the full arts. And I think in general, just the half arts had more time for either, to be sold to collectors or for the players who owned them to leave the game. Like if you're looking for a full art, if it was in, say we're still in late 2019, just after the last Worlds, the people who won them at 2019 Worlds, probably the people who won them the last 2 or 3 years, are still in the game. So if they haven't sold them yet, they still have them. They're easy to make contact with. But if you're looking for cards from 2013 back, there's a lot more chance that the players who won these cards have moved on and don't play Pokemon anymore. And so it's a lot harder to get in touch with the players who might still sell them because they're just not active in any of these groups or anything. So while I think that the half arts have been seeing higher prices, I believe, than the full arts, I think that it's because of those factors and not because the half art should be worth more. I think that obviously once the full art stop or the art changes and then we get a few years down the line, I think that the prices are going to will end up being a lot more level than they are once those other factors have been removed.
Yeah, it's tricky on those because the prices can swing, quite a bit. And I've heard, a number of offers and a number of sales in fairly wide ranges.
I hate to do this, but my allergies are kicking with more. I'm just going to take a little bit of medicine. I will be back in just a minute, okay?
Sorry about that. Yeah, no problem at all. No issue at all. Let's see. 16 times detail says, what are your thoughts, at Pokenomics, what are your thoughts on the Japan postcards? Do you think they'll be extremely sought after? Should I buy them on release, or where do you see the price going? So I'm going to make a video on this, but part of my hesitation on investing, right, or trying to predict modern is you just, or a, Japanese sort of promo, kind of interesting release like these are going to be, is you just don't know unless you happen to get the information. You just don't know how many there are going to be. So I think that the demand for these is going to be very high. I think you're going to see a lot of YouTube channels talking about them. You're going to see people want them. I think they're really cool. They're interesting. I just don't know. It's so hard to predict. Like, is the hype going to be too much out of the gate and there's going to be more of them than people think? And so then prices are going to go up immediately and then kind of come down a little bit? Or is hype going to be a lot and the hype's going to be enough to eat up all of them? And then they're all going to be sort of with people who want to hold them, who like them. And then the price is just going to keep climbing up and up. And the best chance to get them was right in the beginning. Or is are they going to get sort of hyped? They're going to go up a lot. And then people are going to realize, we just don't like these things as much as some of all these other options. And maybe 2 or 3 other cool things come out. And then instead of being something like the Scream promos or Mario, Luigi, Pikachu, it doesn't end up kind of seeing that trajectory of sort of, for the most part, kind of steadily, outside of the big sort of jump this year, that everything saw sort of steadily gaining in price as they go more and more into collectors' hands, and people, aren't willing to part with them until they get higher and higher. So those are my feelings on that, but also just like in general, those types of products. So, I think if I'm going to pay kind of, more than retail prices, I have to really, really like something like that for me personally. But, in terms of predicting what's going to happen, it's difficult to do. We got a question on just the Japan postcards. And do I think they're going to be extremely sought after? Should they buy them on release or wait, or where do you think the prices might go? Things like that. So I was just giving my thoughts.
Okay. Okay, my thoughts on that. I'm not hugely involved too much in the like where do prices go in future thing. I always try and avoid that, but I think anything like that where it is something unique is going to be sought after at some point. Like I heard you mentioning the Scream promos, like that was something like those 5 cards. They've never really done anything like that before or since because it's related to an artist, stuff like that. This one where it's related to the stamps, it's something different. People really go for stuff that is different like that. So I think long term, they're going to be very, very popular, I think.
Yeah. And I think when we think very long term, that becomes even more important, right? Because you're going to have so many cool Japanese releases over the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Is this going to be one of those releases that's in sort of the top 10, top 20? So that's part of why when you think sort of long term, you have to see what it's competing with. And it's like, how is this going to stand up versus other things? Is this going to be cool enough, unique enough, etc.? And, that's definitely, personal opinion, of sorts. And there's gamble and risk, and no one can predict exactly what's going to happen. But
right.
Those are my general thoughts on cards like that. And it's tough to, when we're trying to time when is the best time to buy, it's.
Yeah. Someone's asked, what are your guys' favorite dead CCGs to open?
Oh, great question.
Mine,
I think
mine is My Little Pony.
My Little Pony is your favorite to open.
Yeah, I of dead CCGs, I actually really enjoy opening that one.
Yeah.
And the first 4 sets, especially, are very, very cheap to get boxes of.
Yeah, I've thought about buying a couple on like Hillside before.
Yeah, Hills is where I got all mine. I usually wait until they have like one of the sets is on a daily deal, and I get some $12 boxes or whatever. Because I kind of like the artwork on it. It's pretty fun, and a $12 booster box. I can sit and open some. It's one of the few CCGs I think where they didn't hugely blow up in the last year or so, because I was enjoying opening some Lord of the Rings for a while, but that went from like $12 a box to $150 a box for some sets. Because I think it was basically, I think one person bought Hills out of Lord of the Rings, and then was just like, okay, I now own all the boxes. It's now $100 if you want one. So just My Little Pony's good because I also it hits that level of I do quite enjoy it, and also it's not going to break the bank. I can just do it whenever, because they had the first 4 sets of that game were released worldwide, so were absolutely printed to hell. Like there's so much of it out there. Then the rest of the sets out there are nice because if you actually want to go for something a little bit rarer, the later sets were only printed in North America, so they had a much lower print run, despite some people worldwide still trying to buy them. So they're a little bit more expensive. So it's a nice game where if you just want to open something cheap, it has that option. If you want to do something a little bit more, there's that option too. And there's some nice promos and stuff. So I like it as a full collection. And that's why I like just opening the cheap booster boxes and stuff with it too. I've also been opening a lot of Metacross lately, but that is just because it has appeared at Walmart. So it's like, all right, fine, I'm going to buy some $2 booster packs from Walmart. They put them next to the till. It's an impulse purchase. I can't help myself.
I think for me, so there are a lot of things I really like to open that are not actually games, but as far as games, probably Middle Earth. I like opening Middle Earth, in part because it is fairly inexpensive. I like Score DBZ, Dragon Ball Z, quite a bit, but it's quite expensive and got very expensive this year. So it's just like more stressful to open. Whereas like Middle Earth, particularly if you're opening like White Hand, or like the dragons, like it's still like fun and affordable, and it's like around the price or even slightly cheaper than like brand new Pokemon boxes. And I definitely get more enjoyment out of that, although I enjoy both modern Pokemon and that. So so I guess that would be my answer. But there's so much stuff that I have now, and there's a lot of non like game things that I really like to open, and packs that I'm chasing, and like really expensive things that I'm chasing, trying to get, and maybe I'll open one day.
I stay almost exclusively to things that are games. I have like no. I don't know why it is.
You gotta draw the line somewhere.
I really like trading card games, but just trading cards have just never really done it for me. Like sports cards and like art cards and stuff. It's never really appealed to me.
I think it's just like one of those things where it's like we just kind of draw those lines somewhere, those like arbitrary lines, because it's like even if we're not playing the games, and that's kind of irrelevant to like how much we enjoy it, there's something about like I'm just going to collect all the games that keeps it. And games are also modern, so there's something about it's more from your lifetime, right? Whereas if we go back to trading cards go back to 1880, right, when we talk about cigarette and excuse me, cigar cards and these types of things. So it's just very different. There's a very different feel on those. But some of my favorite cards are definitely not playing, not TCG, CCG. I really like there's certain lore cards that I really like. And other things. Jack Matt gives a super chat and just wants to say, always appreciate the content. Thanks, Jack. Thanks for hanging out with us, and thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Base Blue Boy was asking you when you're going to see more Austin Powers. But I will be doing some of that in the future. I have some Austin Powers up there that I will at some point be opening. I really like Decipher.
Premium stuff. Yeah, Decipher's
a very cool company.
Yeah, I like Decipher. I wanted to get more Star Wars Decipher.
Yeah,
Just having a little bit of a hard time finding it for anything that's reasonably affordable.
yeah, that jumped recently a lot too. I have a lot of their Mega Man stuff. I'm waiting to make a video on.
Yeah, I have a bunch of Mega Man too. I actually just opened a little Mega Man recently.
Oh, nice. I think I have one of each box, but then I've been picking up a lot of the promos where I can. So, but that's another one where it's like, hey, you want to open some boxes? There are millions of them, but some of these promos, that's gonna set you back a bit.
Yeah. Masonberry says that they gave a set number of how many of the stamp promos there will be. They may have, I just may not be aware. Do you know how many? Do you know if they give a set number? Are you aware of like the Japan? I think that's what he's talking about.
A little bit further down, someone was saying they mentioned a 60K print run and then came out and said another 40K were being added to the print run.
Okay.
So they're going to be available at least.
Yeah, I mean, I like to base these things off of like Misaki promos to get a sense of, for me, of like, Misaki promos that were about anywhere between like 28 and 40,000 roughly, 28,000 and 40,000 of each of those distributed. But you have to think that those were, the way those were distributed were very unique. And when we think about the prices those have achieved, part of it is because of the Misaki mark, and that a lot of them are damaged and they're very old, and so a lot kind of disappeared, and obviously there are not 40,000 of those cards in the PSA graded in each of those things, right? They're way fewer, whereas these types of things, they're all going to be kept in very mint condition, so you do have to factor that in, but it's kind of a good starting point to think about, like, how much really is that. Let's see. But thank you for sharing that, Swami. That's helpful. Yeah. And these are the types of things, right? Like if I were to invest, you'd want to know inside and out, as much of that information as possible. For me, with those types of items, I'm not looking to invest in those items long term. I used to buy a lot of that when it was cheap and then sell it or resell it or grade it and resell it. But there's so many people doing that I just I don't compete in that sort of market anymore. So I usually try and get like one for myself, and I just keep it privately because I like it just as a collector, and I don't really think too much about the value as long as I can get a fairly reasonable price. Yeah, people talking about the Neopets. Yeah, Neopets is cool. It's just quite expensive. Have you done any Neopets?
No, that was one that was always kind of like on my low priority list of like, I wouldn't mind doing a video with this at some point. But then the prices just went to the point where I was like, no, the interest for me is not there at the price point it's currently at.
It's the same thing for me. Like I actually like the design. Like I think the way they did it is really great. I'm just not Neopets as like a, your idea just doesn't do me that much. But
looking into it, I thought it looked really cool. Like and the fact that they did do those like sketch cards in the latest sets, like it was an interesting thing that other TCGs didn't really do. But it was just one where it was it's too low down my priority list to do it at that price.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. Enos says, what do you think will happen in the future price-wise to the new alternative arts, like the Urushifu, Tyranitar, Rayquaza, Evolutions, Trainers, etc.? Do you think those will be sought after in the future? What do you think? Maybe without, you don't need to give exact price predictions, obviously, because that's silly, but general popularity, or how you think they'll do over time in terms of that demand side, at least.
I think some amount of it is going to be how long do they keep doing these alternate arts for? Because, if they keep just doing them for every set and they just do this for the next 10 years or something, then, there's probably going to be not a huge demand for all of them. I mean, stuff like the Evolutions, Rayquaza, stuff that's really popular Pokemon, I think, they might dip, but I think in long term, they're probably going to be up from current pricing. But I think if this is a very limited thing that is due for a few sets, there'll be a lot more demand for them in the future. Because like now, when we look back at Gold Stars, and it's like, I know obviously they have much shorter print runs, but there were only ever like 27 of them. so they like kind of have that elusive and exclusive feel to them.
Yeah.
So I guess it's going to depend on how much it gets printed, because with the gold stars, that like there isn't a cheap gold star. Like even though some of them aren't crazy popular Pokemon, they're all being appreciated for being gold stars. Whereas if there were 500 gold stars, I think there would be a much greater thing of like, okay, well, these Pokemon are kind of rubbish. Like no one likes these Pokemon. The prices are really low, and then would still have like evolutions and stuff at the top. So if we get hundreds of these alt arts, it will probably be like a nice big divide between these are popular Pokemon, or they were playable in their time, or they're playable and expanded, and then these are not so popular Pokemon, which will tail off because not as many people will be after them.
Yeah, I think for me, like if I'm thinking about it from an investment perspective, type of thing, I think that for me, it's about the price point that I'm getting them. So for me, from what I'm seeing, they're all a lot too expensive to be cards that I would be investing in. For being such modern cards, and you're taking all the risk of exactly what this question presents, which is like, how are these going to be looked at in the future? The real answer is we don't know, right? We can speculate, and I think that there's certainly good reason, because they're unique, I think, and they're the first sort of that type, of that kind, or of that level of creativity and doing sort of interesting things. They're not the very first. Obviously, we've had alternative arts for a while now, but the like the level, the beauty, the level of the artwork on some of those things like Umbreon, if that card was going for like $200-300 in PSA 10, I could see it, as being like a decent buy. I think at 1,500, I think to me, a lot of that is the product of PSA being shut down, right? A lot of that is the product of people who just really want it, and they're willing to pay those extremely high prices, because the only way to get that card is to like expedite, pay the $200 for the grading, and then you may not get the 10. And, I think when you have to factor all of that in, to sort of the elevated price environment for all modern cards, really, and for vintage too, to some extent, even though a lot of more of that on a percentage basis has already been graded. So, but I think when we think like long term, how will these be viewed? I think they'll be viewed nicely, and I also think we're probably still early enough in Pokemon history for these things to become fairly vintage in the future. And, in terms of having that vintage feel, the issues are going to be quality. Like everyone is keeping these mint, right?
Yeah.
And that's just so different than all this gold star. So not only is Pokemon much more popular now, and so a lot more of this is being printed, to echo the point that DJ Gigabyte was making around, the gold star is obviously extreme low time in Pokemon history. Just very, very few of those sets printed. But not only that, when people pull those gold stars, they were beat up, beat to hell over the years, not kept in pristine, perfect condition, not immediately graded and sent to PSA to be encapsulated forever. So, just those common things. So I think with all of that risk, when you're paying like those very huge prices, to me, that's quite a poor investment like strategy. It may work, but it doesn't seem probably worth the risk. But as a collector, go for it, right? So that's my general take on a lot of those things right now. And I wish they were cheaper, because I'd like to own one, just not for that price. And for me, and the way I deal with this stuff, is that there's so much that I like that there's nothing I need to have. And I've always and the stuff that I really kind of needed, like my childhood type cards, like I was able to sort of get, and need is too strong a word, but like really, really wanted. Now it's sort of like, there's so much cool stuff, both in modern Pokemon, both in other hobbies, that for me, there's, unless like something's at the right price, I just kind of move on to something else. And it's not such a big deal to me. How do you feel about that though? Cause I know you've got that more of that maybe completionist, feeling. How do you deal with maybe feeling like, okay, I have to pay a lot for this card and maybe the price is going to go down? Should I pick that up now, or should I wait to fill out the binder? How do you deal with that?
So I pretty much wait for a long time on set cards. I mean, most of my buying, like I think there's only a couple of sets I actually have completely fully master set out. Because I just wait because it's just, I know that there's stuff I've got burned on where it's like the price has shot up, where I could have picked it up sooner. But one of my main things is just I try to pick up promos as much as I can. But for sets, especially English modern stuff, I could still be opening boosters of this in 2 years because, if this is like Steam Siege, or I mean, like if we go to one that's actually still being printed, Sun and Moon, like my Sun and Moon binder is not full, but since I try and buy every new product that comes out to get the promos and stuff, and I don't just buy the promos as singles, I'm going to be getting packs of Sun and Moon still. So that's one of the reasons why I don't pick up a lot of singles for sets, like just period, because I know I'm still going to be opening so much sealed product. But if there's a couple that I really, really want, I will sometimes go for them. But I kind of just, I don't have a fast and set rule of like, oh, do I worry about the price on this? It will just be like, okay, if I see this, I'm going to get it. More often than not, it's if I'm at some sort of like in-person thing. Obviously, we haven't had those recently. And I see it there. Like, if I see something on eBay for $50 and I see something in person that's like there at a convention, $50, and it's the same card, I'm so much more likely to buy it at the convention just because it's like, it's there. It's like, I'm buying it right now. I'm physically picking it up. I don't know what it is. It might just be, it's probably a really bad habit to have. I guess the habit of just buying everything you see on eBay is probably a bit worse, but it's just what it is.
Well, as long as you can afford it and you enjoy it, it's overspending or impulse buying isn't going to hurt anyone, hurt yourself within moderation. So
I think my general rule overall is to just judge every card on its own. I tend not to worry at all about, is this going to go up? Is this going to go down? Because over the years, you're never, even if you are investing, you are never going to only buy cards that go up. At some point, you're going to buy cards that are going to tank. Like you cannot make every single deal right. And if you spend so long worrying and thinking like, oh, am I going to buy this? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? You're just going to miss out on some good stuff. Going back to the trophy cards that I bought those trophy cards at what was the top of the market at the time. Like that was what they sold for. There's so many rare cards in my collection where I paid the top of market value. Sometimes I paid more than market value. And if I was worrying about investment opportunities, or if I was worrying about, oh, will this go down from 4,000 to, like, I could have passed on my number one trainer thinking I could go down from 4,000. It's 4,000 now, but I could get it 3,000 next year. But obviously now it's probably pushing 100 grand. If you put too much time into worrying about that stuff, you're just going to miss out on so much stuff. And especially as a collector, you're going to suffer if you worry about that. Because obviously everyone wants to get the most stuff they can in their collection. They want to get value for money on their collection still. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you put too much thought into that, your collection is going to be a very small amount of stuff, and you're going to be just kicking yourself years later.
Yeah, I got a great question on Patreon about this that we're going to talk about this month, of just like, I'm so anxious to buy because I'm always worried that things are going to go down, exactly to your point. And it's a great topic. And I think that there's a balance, right, to be had where you can be thoughtful and you can kind of do the best you can, but ultimately, you just don't know. And there's a certain amount of just like, risk in that, and risk that might happen. And so you can protect yourself a few ways. One is not buying on credit, right? I mean, the major way is being able to like afford whatever you're buying and not needing to like sell it or make a profit someday on it. A second can be when we think about it from like an investing perspective, can be just like a little bit of diversification, right? So that you're, if you view this as an investment, you're also maybe like investing some money into like the stock market and some other places, and you're not just like pinning all of your hopes on like the Pokemon market continuing to boom or go up. I think that as a for me, when I'm buying at the top of markets, and I've had this conversation a lot with people who, I think that they never buy at the top of market, right? Or they never buy over market. And I've always been, of the thing that like, there are times when if you really think something's like very undervalued, and this is different than your answer because it's from that financial investing perspective, like buying at market or above market is a great buy because you see that or you strongly believe or have strong conviction that the market is very, very undervaluing something. Now, there's quite a risk in that because the market just may never agree with you, and now you're buying it quite a bit above market and not being patient to get it below. But the other thing, right, is long-term trends. And in Pokemon, if we're being bullish, the long-term trend of Pokemon, as long as people stay really interested and engaged and don't, is positive because we're going to have multiple generations coming in. People like DJ Gigabyte and I will hopefully have more money as we get older overall, and more money to spend on these types of things, as time goes on, and many of the people in the chat and will move further in their careers, et cetera, et cetera. And with that, the demographics of Pokemon look good. It looks strong that there'll be more people in the hobby and more money in the hobby and more interest in the hobby, more demand. And because of that, they're, buying at market or at the top of market for certain items that you think are going to be of interest to those multiple generations and continue to be of interest to all of us. There's some argument that is a reasonable investment because of those demographics is what I would say. And so even if don't worry. So why I say that is that should help you not maybe worry so much about timing the market on those types of items. As long as I think buying in a really hype time doesn't make sense, but I think now we're still in a hype-ish time and there's tons of attention and there's definitely risk, but like there's less risk now. And there's probably, and with these positive demographics, like there are more reasons to be hopeful about buying a key card from this hobby and hoping that it will retain some good value. That's just my opinion. Definitely no promises. And that's why you don't want to put money in any of the stuff that you can't afford to lose.
Yeah, I think as well, especially speaking as a collector, if you're collecting and, you say you buy a card for 1,000 and it drops to 500.
Yeah.
If you weren't planning on selling that card, you haven't lost the money. If you're collecting, the best thing to do is view the money that you're paying for these cards as just money you're spending. Like treat it as the same as going to do your weekly grocery shop.
Sure.
You spend $200 on your weekly grocery shop. You don't sit around thinking, oh, I have $200 worth of groceries now. It's I've spent $200. If you're not trying to be an investor, if you're not trying to be a flipper, just think, when I buy this $1,000 card, I have spent $1,000. Don't think about it. I've put $1,000 into this card. Let's see what it's worth. Just, I have spent $1,000. I now have this card that I own.
I think what's tricky though for most people is that when you're spending that much money, like that was more effective when things were a lot more affordable.
Yes, it's just
now it's a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit more of a situation where now I think that a lot of people are buying these items both because they are collectors, but they also hope it retains value because they probably couldn't justify buying it if it went down in value. Like a lot of these items, just on itself, it's that sort of like hybrid collector. Investors probably too strong, but hoping that the item just doesn't go to zero, or doesn't go down a lot. And then the other point too to make to that, and I'm sorry I cut you off, I'll let you finish. The other point too to make with that is that we only have so much money. And so the other negative thing that can happen, right, is if I buy this card for $1,000 and then it goes all the way down to 100, it's like, oh shoot, I could have taken that $1,000 and put it into all of these other things and gotten a lot more out of that. But I think the point, I think I'm being too critical, is the core of your point that you're making, I think is very valid and is a good kind of intellectual technique around treating it like you're going to the movies, like it's an entertainment, right? That you're not putting money into this to then get the money out. You're putting the money into it for the experience of owning the card and to never resell. And I think that's in itself is a good point.
I think, like I said, this only applies if you're trying to 100% be a collector.
Yeah.
I think the main difference, is between collecting or investing and flipping is if you're being just a collector, the goal when you're buying a card is that you don't sell that card ever.
Yeah.
So, and I obviously get that it's kind of gutting if a card falls from 1,000 to 100. You could do more with it, but I think it falls back into that thing I was saying of over time, it's going to balance out. I've bought loads of cards that have plummeted in value. Like I'm sure I have some cards that are still worth less than what I paid for them 5 years on, but overall it will balance out. And if you do spend too much time on that what if this falls from 1,000 to 100, you're going to miss out on the things that go from 1,000 to 10,000.
Sure.
And I know as well, there's lots of stuff where I have let myself get into that, or sometimes either where I don't want to buy it right now, or I don't have the money right now, where the stuff that I could have bought, which would have blown the roof off. I've talked before about Espeon Umbreon play promos. Like, I could have bought a pair of those so cheap. I could have, if I'd sold them, and if I'd viewed it as an investment, I'd have paid my house off or whatever. My trophy cards that I still have, if I sold those off, I wouldn't have a mortgage anymore. But viewing it from a collector's point, I don't view that as I have, a couple of 100,000, 500,000, whatever in trophy cards.
Sure.
It's just at some point in the past, I spent this money on those cards. I have those cards. They're part of my collection. Obviously, for insurance purposes and stuff, you have to kind of know what they are. And it is nice where if I ever hit a true financial hardship, where I have no other options for getting money, I can't sell them. But that needs to not be the only thing in your mind. If that's the only thing on your mind, I just think you're not going to be collecting very well. You're not going to be collecting smart. I think you just have to fully get out of that mindset. If you're obviously totally different if you want to invest, totally different if you're trying to sell these things for high prices, totally different if you're going to flip. But if you're just wanting to be a collector, you really have to try and get out of the mindset of what is the future price on this card.
Although I think that collecting, there can be a different ways to collect and a spectrum. So part of my enjoyment in collecting is getting a good deal, even if I'm not reselling. And that might seem irrational on some level, but I do think the hunt and finding and getting your money to spread as far possible, even if you're never going to sell things, can be part of the enjoyment of building that collection and of doing it. And so I do think that there can be a little bit of a spectrum of collectors and what part of collecting do you get most of that value from? And I think wherever you're getting most of that value from is where ideally your mindset can be. And so if you're getting a lot of anxiety, to DJ Gigabyte's point right here, and if you're experiencing a lot of anxiety and things like buyer's remorse and these types of things, because something went down in value, definitely, DJ Gigabyte's perspective and mindset and point here, I think can be super value and sort of a long-term look, and also trying to focus on, what's important to you. And clearly for you, it's having the cards. It's the art of having the cards, and it's less important what you paid for them, and more important just having it and enjoying it and appreciating it.
Yeah, I can't hate, wanting a good deal. I will definitely always take a good deal if it's there.
Sure.
I just think that if you shouldn't be only going for a good deal, you shouldn't be there's a difference between saying, oh, this card is about $1,000 and I saw someone selling it for 800. Great. That's fine. Take the 800. It's a great deal. Everyone should feel happy if they get that deal. Great. But don't say, I'm not going to buy this $1,000 card in case someone is selling it for 800. I don't think anyone should be getting themselves in the mindset of, oh, I have to get a great deal or I'm not buying anything. I think it's just, that is one of the downfalls where you're going to end up with just not buying anything at all most of the time.
Yeah. And I think the point I'm trying to illustrate maybe is something like that. There's a spectrum there, and that for different people, it's going to be more important to their overall enjoyment to get the deal. And for others, it's going to be more important to get the card. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's
totally.
There's some individualism.
Everyone's going to have a mix. The opposite of where I'm saying, don't only go for deals. The same side is just don't just buy every card. For the vast
majority of people, it's good advice. And I think particularly if you're feeling very anxious and you're not knowing where to start, and also if you're new and new to the hobby too, it's just starting somewhere, right? Just start building the collection and you'll sort of learn as you go. That sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's good. So why don't we do another 15 minutes? Is that cool?
Yeah, that works for me.
And definitely would love to have you on again. So we'll, we can chat again in the future, but for tonight, guys, we're going to do another 15 minutes. If people want to ask, I know there are some questions down here. We'll take a few more questions and then just I'd like to just ask you for sort of your final thoughts and take, and then we'll end for tonight. Let's see. Luisa Speraza says, how do you feel about Aquapolis and Skyridge being so undervalued? I think. So I guess the question is, what are your feelings on Aquapolis and Skyridge? And first, I just want to, like, from a collector's perspective, do you like Aquapolis? Do you like the E-Series, generally speaking? And, if you want to comment on overall value in the market, feel free to do so.
Well, market is never my thing, but the E-Series as for artwork is incredible. I definitely do prefer Aquapolis and Skyridge to Expedition, both because they have the crystals in, which look great, and I really liked the separate set of hollows so that you didn't have duplicate reverses. Mm-hmm. I don't personally own a lot of E-Series. My wife owns quite a lot of E-Series, and they do look incredible. It's a very, very good set. And as we know, Skyridge was, people talk a lot about Skyridge being pretty short printed because of Wizards of the Coast ending, but not a lot of people realize that does have an effect on previous sets, because they don't just, they don't print Expedition, then they're done. They print Aquapolis, then they're done. They print Skyridge, and that got cut off. Like, Skyridge had a short print, but Aquapolis had a short print too. It had about 3 months more than Skyridge, but it was still cut off. Like, if they were continuing, if Wizards had stuck with Pokemon, they'd have probably been printing these sets for a few years. So Aquapolis still had a shorter print run than it should have done. Expedition had a longer print run than those, but it still had a shorter print run than it should have done. Same, probably, I think Legendary Collection was before that, probably should have had a bit of a longer print run. Maybe even Neo Destiny should have had a bit of a longer print run. Skyridge just took the brunt of it, but people need to realize that the other sets leading up to it had the same effect when Wizards had that cut off. So, and I think going forward as well, the Wizards to Nintendo is where a lot of people really see the cut for what is vintage. Like right now, what counts as vintage and what a lot of people collect. So the very last set of that is always going to be super popular to people. I don't know whether I would call it undervalued, because it's pretty valuable right now. A lot of
fairly valuable and fairly well known.
Yeah, it might be one of those things where, like, the value is fair right now, but will still grow. Like, something doesn't have to be undervalued to grow in future. I don't think. I think you can definitely say, like, this is what the price is now is pretty fair for where the market is now and for the amount of people trying to get it, how old it is, how rare it is. But in 10 years, it will be even rarer, harder to get, especially sealed items. The price will have gone up again. It doesn't mean it was undervalued right now, just means that, the factors have changed and it has gone up again. I think they're always going to be, if you're trying to invest, I think they're probably always going to be safe sets to invest in, because I think they're very, very popular. And having that shorter print run and being the very end cutoff point of Wizards of the Coast is something that does appeal to a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, with sets like that, we're at a point right now in the hobby that all of sort of the people who kind of came in with Logan Paul who are still here, have probably learned about those sets, and the ones that are probably interested in them already engaged with them. So I think that there was a window there, that, I was talking about how, Neo and I thought everything was way overpriced, but, I was talking a lot about how, Neo and into E-Series, into original Nintendo EX era seemed to be probably if you were going to buy at sort of the height of these markets, we're probably going to be a little bit safer buys than your Jungle Fossil, base set, gyms, Rocket, in large part just because of that normal cycle, that people come into the hobby, they collect what they experienced as a kid. Most people did not make it to E-Series, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But at this point, right today, I feel like most of the people here now have been here probably long enough now that they've gotten to that point, and probably, those prices, I think for the most part, honestly, in vintage, like prices seem to make somewhat sense relative. Like the sets tend to make some relative sense to each other. So I know we all want to be like, which one is the deal, right? Like which Pwcc set should I, pour it all into? And there are positives and negatives of each of these sets from those investment perspectives. So Peak Dachu has been asking this question so I want to make sure, because I've seen him ask it a couple of times. What are your guys' thoughts on the early 2004 Tropical Island binder sets from Worlds? He has a deal I'm discussing and haven't seen a lot sold. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know what sort of price you'd be looking at for, but it's a very, very cool set, and I wish I had one. For the actual binder sets, I have 2009 onwards. So from 2004, I have the fully unstamped one that everyone got, and I have a staff one. I don't have a binder set. So I think it's a very cool set. I think all of the World's promos are very, very nice sets. I think you're never going to go wrong buying some of that. I think it's nice story. They're tied to an exclusive event. You could only get them by competing or staffing these events. And the earlier, the better, really. I think 2004 and then 2007, I think, are the really big ones that are very hard to get. 2007, they just had a very, very small Worlds that year. And 2004, just being the oldest one, has a lot more popularity. A lot more people want it being the first. But so, I think if you can get it, definitely go for it. It's a very, very cool set.
Yep, nothing to add. I agree. I'm a big fan, as people on this channel know, of all of those cards. Pokemon Raider says, what is your favorite? And I will say, I guess, just adding to the 2004, the 2004, stamped cards are so difficult to get, because they like many years they gave, if you came in first, you got one of every level. That year you only, my understanding, and you can correct me if any of this is wrong, but my understanding is that you only got the level that you finished at. And so that's part of why getting any stamped card from that year, and why most of us collectors who try to collect all these world stamps were missing sort of that year. That's why it's so difficult to find in top 16 or top 32, etc.
Yeah, the binder sets obviously we're still giving out to every player. They're just still rare. They're still hard to come across now.
Oh, and my point with that was going to be that adds a little bit of a premium, because it's so many people want that art, because they can't get it in the stamped ones. So the non-stamped ones, which are quite a bit more common, it gives a little bit of that premium. It's part of why those exploded so much in value. The 2004 ones versus some of these others.
The fully unstamped one wasn't in a binder.
The stamped Worlds, but not.
Yeah, it has Worlds of 4. The one with no stamps. Worlds of 4 was the only year where they did a promo for spectators too. So you just had to be in the building, and they'd give you like handfuls of these ones. Then the binder has just Worlds of 4, and then top 16 through the finalist of the other ones.
And those are very expensive if you can get. I mean, even the completely non-stamped.
That's up to like $100 now.
It's still worth a decent amount, particularly graded. So, and I'm not sure what the world stamped ones are going for, but quite a lot I've seen. Some high asking prices. I'm not sure what they're actually selling for. And then the staff ones and these types of things, I know people asking just like 50,000, just crazy huge amounts that I don't know if any have sold for any of those very large amounts, but. All right, Pokemon Radar, what's up, John? Says, what is your favorite non-card Pokemon items you own or would like to own if you don't have them?
So my favorite item is the banner. Just the fact that it's from a Worlds I went to. It's unique. It's I don't think they made another version of this exact banner. It obviously looks sick. That's why I have it up on the wall. Hope you can still hear me. Also, I don't know if that counts. Did he say non-card or just non-TCG at all?
Non-card Pokemon items.
Okay, does the uncut sheet count?
We'll give it to you.
you can decide on that, John, whether the uncut sheet counts as a non-card item. But that is really nice too. I actually got that sheet really early when I was collecting. I think it was like 2009, 2010. I bought that. And I just kept it like rolled up forever. I actually bought it from someone who got it because they competed in the Tropical Mega Battle, because they were selling they had the ninth stadium and stuff they were getting rid of too. Couldn't afford that at the time, but I picked up that sheet and I just had it for ages, and it moved countries and stuff with me, just still in this box. And then one time my wife snuck it out the house and got it freshly framed for me as an anniversary gift.
That's nice.
But I didn't even
Very
realize.
sweet.
Yeah, I think the binder, the banner probably still wins out.
Yeah, Radar Nix's, he says that's many cards.
It's many cards. All right, it's definitely the binder then. As for non-card item I'd want to own, I don't know. There's so much weird, cool Pokemon stuff. There's probably some like really obscure Vaporeon stuff that I'm not even thinking of that is really expensive that I'd like. Yeah, there's so much cool Pokemon stuff. It's hard to narrow it down.
So I like collecting just the mats from every Worlds. I have a bunch here. I just really like these.
Yeah, those are cool.
Just the Playmats. It's just, fairly affordable. And I really like them and enjoy them. And like when I'm sorting cards, looking at cards, I like putting them down and just having it as a backdrop. So nothing too expensive, which is great, and something that is purely just for my enjoyment. And I love all the World's arts. So
yeah, I do like Playmats.
Yeah.
I think I've just got a bit jaded with Playmats because of how many I have. Because we've staffed a ton of events and stuff and worked on events, so we get loads there. I've played a load of Magic events, so like the mats, especially from World and stuff, I definitely agree are very cool. But when you have 300 odd Playmats in your house somewhere, you kind of lose the appeal of Playmats as a whole.
Sure. All right, let's take one more question here. Let's see what we got. Do you feel some of the reprints and celebrations will give exposure and pique interest in their original cards, especially to some of the more obscure eras, to casual collectors like Level X, Primes, EX, Gold Stars, etc.?
So I feel like most people are going. I think most of the things that are getting reprinted, they're kind of already exposed quite a lot. I don't think there's anyone who's like not knowing about Gold Stars if they're going to be into them. I feel like most of the people who would be interested in EX's Gold Stars, Level X's Primes, are aware of them. So I don't know how much exposure it's really going to bring. I think if it's going to bring exposure, it's going to be to people who are literally just getting into the hobby and get lucky finding some celebrations at a store, because that stuff's going to sell out quick. So I think just some of those people, it will cause them to go back and look and see those. But I think that to the people it would cause to do that, I think they're people who are gonna who would be doing that anyway. They would eventually have that interest. I don't know how much celebrations is really gonna kick off the interest in those. That's for piquing interest in it. I think the interest is already there to so many people. They're already so well done. I guess maybe Primes, out of the four that you mentioned, Primes are kind of on the low end to a lot of people, but I guess that's just because they were not super rare within their era, because they were outshined by the legend cards.
Yeah.
But hey, we'll see. There might be just a ton of, you never know, there might be a ton of people who just buy modern who've never seen a Gold Star before or never wanted to see a Gold Star before, who will for the first time. So
I think there will be some people. I'm not sure those are going to be people who would buy them. So I agree. Like, I think people who are really interested in buying expensive vintage cards and have been in the hobby a little while will have already done the research to learn what is out there. I do think, like, one thought I have is like kids, right? I mean, it could be, a gateway for kids to be introduced to some of these things that then when they get older and have money, maybe they want to come back and own some of the originals. So, and then that these cards will be out for many years. And so newer people coming into the hobby, maybe it will help introduce them to a lot more of these things quicker. I mean, something like a Versa series, or particularly some of these things that are even more, obscure, that I heard are potentially going to be part of the set. I'm not sure. Do you know if Versa series is still in it? I heard something about like Lance's Charizard being in it.
I don't know. I've been away
It
for
wasn't
2
part of the
weeks.
leaks. It wasn't. I didn't see it in the leaks, so I don't know if it's legit anymore. But
I haven't been like fully keeping up to everything as much as I should over the past 2 weeks, just because I haven't been at home, so I've been away. So was doing holiday stuff rather than.
You're allowed. You're allowed. Well, Travel's saying, I think we underestimate the percent of new collectors of those coming back after decades and aware of a lot of errors and ready to throw some money in. Yeah, I think it just can provide sort of a quick, thing for some new people to come back and grab it. Some people, so.
I think maybe if we hadn't had, the Logan Paul thing and Celebrations was coming just at the end of like a natural increase, I would think maybe it would create a boom. But I think so many people who have that nostalgia for the old stuff already got back into it within about the last year or so that maybe there won't be as many still who are brought into it by Celebrations.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be really interesting. Like if for some reason this really like pushes up some of those vintage cards, it'll be fascinating because it'll be a great point of like how bubbly, like how people just like, they're like, how are these like modern people who are just don't know anything about vintage, but are super into modern or something, and I'm just not sure how many of those exist, but
I think the main thing to realize is the biggest booms we've had have been when something has brought attention to the Pokemon TCG outside of the TCG itself. Like we got attention brought in by Logan Paul. He wasn't just catering to TCG fans. It was all fans of his. It kind of spread over a lot of different people. And then before that, the Pokemon Go boom, it wasn't just TCG fans it was appealing to. It brought in like a whole new level of people because it was marketed to a completely different level of people. Celebrations obviously it's a TCG product. It's marketed to the TCG people. So that's one of my reasons why I think it will have less of an impact on like growth and stuff than those other events did, just because of it hitting the already existing TCG market.
Yeah. Okay, last question, and then I think we're going to wrap it up. But Jody Matomo says, I'm actually curious if you had to purchase the banner at the event or if it was given to you.
So it was, I kind of explained this a bit earlier when it was like raffle tickets and they were raffled off to staff. And then I knew someone on staff who got that one and was able to make a deal with them for it.
Any last words or anything that you feel like you wanted to touch on or elaborate on or say? Definitely, I want to please plug your channel here and let people know that they can definitely find where they can find more of you.
Definitely go and subscribe to my channel. I'm just below that 1,000 subscriber mark.
Help this man get to 1,000. He deserves it. He's been working at it for a while.
Yeah, please help me monetize this channel somewhat. So yeah, everyone should definitely go subscribe to that. Like I say, I write for Ludkins Media. I don't have a set schedule. It's not like every week, but you'll see my stuff pop up when I write articles over there. You can also follow me on Twitter, add me on Facebook, whatever you want. I'm always down to just chat to people. So anywhere you can find me, you can drop me messages and stuff, as long as they're not saying, can I buy cards from your collection? Because that's the most frequent message I get is, I like this picture of your cards. Can I buy them? But no.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm selling any cards, I will make it very, very clear that they have to sell.
All right, man. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
I definitely enjoyed it. Anytime.
Yeah, man. And thank you all so much for those in the chat just hanging out and watching. We appreciate you guys spending the night with us and spending some time talking Pokemon, and we'll catch you all again soon.
Yeah.